So in this lesson, we're going to start with one of the most important parts of the process. We're going to start painting in our values. And we're going to start with the white fur, which is the face and part of the body as well. Values, it's the lightness and darkness of a color. And so that is what really starts to add contrast, dimension, and form, starts to make something really feel dimensional. So let's get started. I wanted to start with the head, but I think I'm going to do the face, and then I think I'm going to move on to these white areas. So I'm going to select my white fur, I'm going to create a new layer, and again, just using the option key here to click in between and then clip it there. I think that the brush that I'm going to use is the rough edge brush. I'm going to zoom in. And I think I want to lower the opacity on these lines. They're too visible, they kind of get distracting, for me anyways. Looking at this, I feel like this is still too cool. I think I want this to be warmer. So I'm going to push that even more. I think I'm going to start like there. Yeah, that feels much better. Okay. I'm going to clip the layers this way so that I don't ruin this here. So I want to be able to have that flexibility just in case for now. My shadows are going to be just a little cooler. And then just want to remember to turn this on, lower my flow down to like, let's say 33 is fine, and then turn this guy on. Let's get started here. So now I'm just gonna start to add in my shadows wherever I believe they're going to land. I think I'm going to lower the opacity on this because again, this is just a guide for now. So my light's coming from up there, so yeah, there is going to be some shadows here. There's going to be a little bit of shadow here because of the edge of this hat or mask. I'm just kind of blocking everything in, my shadows, where that's gonna fall. The darker you go, the more that's gonna feel like a deep indentation there, like a crease. So right now it's there. If I was to push it really dark, I don't want that. I want it to be just a little softer. I think there's going to be a little bit of shadow casted from up here. These are going to get much darker as well, especially in these occlusion areas here. I'm going to zoom out a little bit and I'm going to start to add some shadows down here because again, the light is coming from the top left. I don't think that his body is going to capture too much light. I think there'll just be some fill light or maybe even like some bounce light from down here, and we'll get to that later. I want to soften this a little. I think there's going to be some darker shadows here. I'm going to add more red. The further down I go, the slightly, like the cooler that color is going to get. And I think I want to keep pushing that because again, my light's warm, slightly cool shadows. And all of this is going to get like some more finessing later on. Like see up here, I think it'll be softer. And this is the tricky part because you don't have reference. Like I don't have this guy in 3D where I can tell exactly how the light's going to hit. So this is where I keep saying that those sphere studies and painting from observation helps so much because it builds this mental library. Now, I want you to remember that it is okay not to be 100% sure where the light is going to hit, especially because you're painting something that's dimensional, you know? So a lot of times what I do is I'll use a toy. Sometimes I'll use like my son's like little action figure, and I'll just like I'll have a flashlight or just a lamp or something, and I'll shine it onto a little figurine and see where it hits. It's not going to be exact to what you're painting, but it'll help you kind of get an understanding as to how the shadows might be casted over different parts of the body. So feel free to use that anytime you're feeling a little stuck. Now let's keep working here. Maybe down through here it would be darker because it's kind of coming real close, like pressing up against his fur. And then softer up here. Then I think this in here might be pretty dark. I don't think that this necessarily needs to be as light as that up there. I think this is probably gonna mostly be shadow down here. And so I think I should probably bring some of that over this way. I'm gonna keep doing this. I think I'm gonna speed this up a little bit as I start to push some of these darks and bring out some of those occlusions. Now I'm just gonna start blending and painting in some of these areas. Here I noticed that my mask was painted. There was like some dark edges. So I just fixed that up. And then now just adding some of those occlusions I was talking about, so those really dark areas. And I wanted to use a softer brush to do that. So here I switched over to a softer edge brush. And using that to kind of just brush in those darker areas. I like to start off nice and rough like this because it gives you more information to kind of play with. Fur goes in so many different directions and it has so much texture to it, so much life to it. All of these variations and all of these rough brush strokes will give us a good amount of stuff to kind of play with later as we start to kind of refine. I went back to my rough brush here so that I can rough up some of those edges where the lighter parts meet the shadowy areas. Here I'm just adding some variation of color within the lighter area. The more variation, the less flat and the more like natural media it starts to feel like versus something that's very like super digital. Here, just kind of pushing some of those shadows. I realized that that needed a darker shadow here on the side of that strap. Remember I mentioned the mood board, so here's the mood board. You know, just kind of toggling back and forth. Looking at the pen, I noticed that it has some yellow fuzz in there, so I added that in. And we'll move on to the mask in the next video. Okay, so now that we added our values, it's starting to look really cool. It's really starting to get some form, some real good dimension, and just wait till you see how it really transforms when we get to doing the second pass. But now in the next lesson, we're gonna move on to the gun, and we're gonna add the first pass to that. All day, keep the lights on. All day.